Now, back in 2022, I had originally planned to review this film for its 100th anniversary, but of course I missed out on that time, so I never got a chance to do it. So now it's only fitting, since we have the Robert Eggers film that had just came out in 2024, Christmas Day, and I had seen that film, so don't worry, I'll be giving you guys a review for that one as well. It was only about a matter of time before I decided to review this film. Now, I know there's other films that are old as well, There's, Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, and we have another film that's going to be turning 100 this year. It's only fitting that I decided to talk about this one first, because it's well known in the horror genre. It's one of the oldest surviving horror films in history, and it almost didn't come to be that way. So anyways, guys, let's take a trip back to memory lane back in 1922, and here is my review for Nosferatu, the 1922 film. So when it comes to the story of this film, it's going to be a little bit of a hazy one, because this story is basically a blatant ripoff and copyright of Bram Stoker's Dracula. F.W. Murnau didn't want to face legal troubles when it came to filming this film, so he changed the name of characters, the setting, the time period, and even the character himself of Dracula was changed to Count Orlok, or Nosferatu, just to avoid all the legal troubles. But he didn't face that accomplishment, because Bram Stoker's widow found out about it, sued him for all of the money that it had made, which, shockingly enough, was nothing. This movie completely failed, because I guess no one watched it. And yeah, she basically had to make a compromise of getting all the films destroyed of this film, right? So I guess a few of them were destroyed, but not enough for it to be released to the public, and that's why we have it today. So originally, the 1922 Nosferatu film was supposed to be lost media. It was supposed to be a lost film, just like a very famous lost film, and that is London After Midnight, of course. But successfully, we have Nosferatu. So it's always that nice little blend of, you have Dracula, then you have Nosferatu. And of course, watching Dracula and Nosferatu, they're similar. They're very similar. It's like, yeah, you didn't really change much. I mean, yes, you changed the name of the characters, and you changed the setting, and the time period, and all that jazz. But the movie is very similar to the fucking novel. And when you watch the 1931 film with Bela Lugosi, it's very fucking similar. So it's kind of hard to sit there and talk about how this story works when it's the same as Dracula from 1931. So, it's kind of fucking odd, You have to sit there and think, it's like, wow, this is like a, ripoff, Kind of like how Friday the 13th is a ripoff of Halloween. I mean, at least Friday the 13th did some different shit, right? But nonetheless, when it comes to the story of this film, being similar to the novel and the 1931 film, of course, this one came first, right, of the films. But it's not too bad of a story. It's pretty solid, especially since, it's 102 years old and now had a remake in the 70s and the 2024 film, which holds up today, especially for its story. Now, I know a lot of fans out there who love horror movies probably have never even watched this film because, well, it's black and white. That's a misconception. This movie does have color in it. They used color for different time zones of the days. So basically, yellow was used for the daytime. Pink was used for dawn. Dawn? Yeah, around dawn, the dawn of the sun coming up. Blue was used for nighttime. And then orange was kind of used for exterior light for inside the buildings. Now, that's why I say it's like, no, this film has color to it. It's not just black and white. There's actually color to it. But of course, a lot of people probably never even watch this movie because it's a silent film and they have no idea what that even means, which is fucking shocking to me. Silent era films are basically the start of cinema. You had to read everything. And I'm sorry, but if you haven't watched a Godzilla film and had to put the subtitles on, if you had to, sometimes they came with it, right? You were forced to read no matter what. But this one, it was like you could see the actors and the characters talking, and then all of a sudden, little text screen comes up, right? So it's kind of one of those things, and it's just like, yeah, I guess no one learned to fucking read or whatever. But nonetheless, like, a lot of people would probably find this film very dated. It's like, well, yeah, it's 1922. It's going to be very dated. But that's the thing that gives it the charm of it. It's a film from over 100 years ago. This is how people were dressed. This is how people were, how they looked, and how this village that's even filmed in this film, it's like, holy shit, like, half of it's still standing today, right? And there are tours to that fucking those places and those shots and the scenes. And there's something about it that has this charm. It's like, wow, that's what, civilization was like 100 years ago. It's like a step into time, right? So it has that charm. So just get away from the fact that this film is a silent era film. There's some charm to that. And just, fess up and actually watch it. Of course, when it does come to the fact that it's a silent era film, a lot of the performances from all the actors in this film are very exaggerated. I mean, like, there's people who are constantly laughing, constantly smiling, constantly, like, bringing their fists in the air, or, like, expressing themselves. It's an expressionist film because it was like staged. They didn't have the mics, so there was no sound. So they had to express themselves and how they felt and how they reacted and anything, basically, because there is no sound. And there's some sort of charm to that. And with all the characters, I mean, like, yes, it's exaggerated. And, some of them, Hunter, fucking making some dumb fucking decisions and shit. I'm not going to give too much grief on that because this was acting back in the 1920s, okay? Like, it was stage actors, basically. And I'm just not going to give them shit for that. It's like, whatever. But if anyone stands out the most, it's Max Schreck, who plays Count Orlok, or Nosferatu. Now, Max Schreck apparently was not the original choice, but he still landed the role anyways, and he has a presence to him as Count Orlok. There are so many things about the look that was presented that when you actually see the actor, he doesn't look like him when he's in the Nosferatu makeup. And that's kind of harkening back to another actor, which I'll be talking about later on in another fucking movie review. But yeah, he's unrecognizable. And everything about Count Orlok in this film, even being over 100 years old, is still mesmerizing because of the scenery, how he presents himself. He almost looks like a rat in a way, and he's even got the fangs in the fucking front like a rat. He's like, his fingernails are long like a rat. His head shape is like a rat. And, I know some people will look into that about like, oh, that's like a Jewish stereotype thing. It's like, nah, I'm not going with that. They just wanted to change the look, and that's what they landed with. But nonetheless, Max Schreck did a very good job playing Count Orlok in this film, and it's part of cinematic history, and we have to respect it. When it comes to the gore and the kills of this movie, there's not really any fucking gore in this movie, right? It's the 1920s, right? This ain't the 1980s. But of course, when it comes to the kills, a lot of the kills are basically, we see plague victims being carried out of their homes in this village, and basically are being carried out in caskets and coffins. So we don't really get to see a lot of the kills or the deaths in this movie. But the ones we do see, they're like, blood-sucking in a way, and it's like, whatever. But, one of the most memorable kills is also Count Orlok's, which at the very first time, which also kind of made history, this was the first time you ever saw a vampire die on screen, and it's just a dissolve kind of effect, where it's like he's standing in the window, he's like this, and then he just fades and dissolves, and then all of a sudden the next thing we see is a puff of smoke on the floor. It's like, the techniques in this movie are okay, and when it comes to the gore and the kills, there's not much, but what do you expect? Now, for anyone who hasn't even seen this movie, I know there are fucking things and like scenes and imagery that you have seen throughout history on TV, on other horror movies, because this movie was basically a public domain film, right? Like the scene in which Count Orlok rises out of the coffin. I know a wrestler, Aleister Black, had adopted that for his entrance. And of course, there's the shot going up the stairway. And how that looked with his shadow going up the stairway, it is a piece of cinematic history. It is a piece of horror history. Even if you've never seen this movie, you know that scene. And you've seen it countless times, you probably just don't know it yet. But it's iconic. There's a lot of iconic scenes in this movie. There's also scenes that are not so iconic, like the scene where they use basically stop motion effects, where it's just like the opening of a lid, where it's, you know, cut, paste, cut, paste, cut, paste. You know, it's like, I'm not going to give them shit for that. But of course, then there's the scene where Count Orlok stacks his coffins and he gets in and the lid just, you know, gets on top. And I'm like, yeah, that wasn't really a good scene. But other than that, you know, there's a lot of sped up scenes and whatnot. And, you know, it's like Benny Hill kind of style. But again, I'm not going to give shit to the effects. It's of a different time. So prior to watching the Robert Eggers film, I had watched this film years ago. Way back when I had this like big box set of like 100 movies, these public domain films that you could just watch anywhere, right? And Nosferatu was one of them. And I had watched the documentary of Nightmares in Red, White, and Blue, and Nosferatu was featured in that. And it always caught my interest to watch that. It's a silent era film, so I wanted to watch it. And it had been years after watching that, I was just like, you know, I'm going to watch it again. So does it hold up today? It does. You know, if you want to have that experience to watch a silent era film, it's one of the ones that you want to start with, or, you know, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, or any fucking horror film that Lon Chaney Sr. had done. But other than that, you know, the film, it's like, yeah, it's all right. I get why it's memorable. Is it replay watchable? Sometimes to a degree. You gotta be in a certain mood to watch silent era films, and half the time I'm not always into silent era films, but I'll watch them and give them the respect that they deserve. And when it comes to the film itself holding up, you know, 102 years later, it's like, yeah, it's one of those things where it's a time capsule type of film, where it's just like you want to be able to watch it and be like, oh, that's what it looked like 100 years ago. Not too bad. But other than that, film is okay. So, for my rating, I'm going to give Nosferatu from 1922 a 5.5 out of 10. So tell me, guys, have you seen the 1922 film of Nosferatu, and did you enjoy it? Let me know in the comments down below. If you liked the video, make sure you also hit the thumbs up and subscribe for more content. And don't forget to hit that bell notification so you get notified about all the other videos coming out on the channel. So anyways, that's it for me. I'm Stephen Harold, your host of this channel. I will talk to you guys later, and in the next video, I will be giving you guys my review for the Robert Eggers remake of Nosferatu. So take care, and stay spooky.